I prescribe BPC-157 to my patients. I've watched shoulders that failed 2 rounds of physical therapy start improving in 3 weeks. I've seen gut symptoms that nothing else touched begin to resolve. And I'm about to tell you exactly how limited the evidence actually is, because both of these things are true at the same time. And that's the conversation nobody in this space is having honestly. I'm Dr. Clete Barrick, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. I run a telehealth practice that includes peptide therapy. So everything I should share today is educational. So this is not medical advice for your specific situation. Talk to your own doctor before starting or changing anything. So here's what I'm going to cover. What BPC-157 actually does at the cellular level. Every human study that exists, and I mean every single one because there are only 3. The cancer concern that most peptide content skips over entirely. And then I'm going to walk you through exactly how I prescribe it, what I monitor, and who I will not give it to. If you've been researching BPC-157 online and can't figure out who to trust, stick around. I'm going to give you the same assessment I give all of my patients. BPC-157 stands for Body Protection Compound 157. It's a chain of 15 amino acids derived from a protein your stomach naturally produces. Croatian researchers isolated it in the early 1990s while studying how the gut repairs itself from ulcers. So they noticed this fragment had an unusual ability to protect and regenerate tissue. So not just in the stomach, but across multiple organ systems. Think of an injury site a lot like a construction zone. To rebuild, you need supply lines, which are blood vessels. You need workers, which are fibroblasts and repair cells. You need raw materials like collagen, and you need a coordinator making sure everything shows up at the right time. Most healing agents call in all of one crew. BPC-157 appears to call in several at once. That is the core reason it shows up in research on so many different tissue types. It is not fixing any one tissue directly, it's accelerating the shared infrastructure of repair. So let me walk you through the 6 mechanisms that the research describes. First is angiogenesis. This is probably the most important one because BPC-157 stimulates vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, which tells your body to build new blood vessels at that injury site. More blood supply means more oxygen and nutrients reaching that damaged tissue. So this is generally the rate-limiting step in repair for poorly vascularized structures, things like tendons, ligaments, cartilage, which is why those are, these tissues where the anecdotal results tend to be most dramatic. Second, you have nitric oxide modulation. So BPC-157 interacts with the nitric oxide system, which controls blood vessel dilation and local blood flow. This is part of how it delivers both healing and anti-inflammatory effects at the same time. More flow to the injury, less swelling around it. So third, growth factor receptor upregulation. BPC-157 increases the expression of growth hormone receptors on tendon cells and fibroblasts. Those are the cells that produce collagen. Think of it as turning up the volume on your body's existing repair radio. The signal's already there. BPC-157 makes the cells listen harder. Fourth is anti-inflammatory action. BPC-157 reduces pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. So these are the chemical signals that drive chronic inflammation. That's the kind of inflammation that prevents damaged tissue from completing the repair and healing process. Chronic inflammation is like a fire alarm that keeps ringing after the fire is already out. The rebuild can't proceed because the alarm won't stop. BPC-157 helps turn it off so that repair can actually finish. Fifth is cell migration. Through something called the FAK-Paxillin pathway, BPC-157 activates signaling that helps repair cells physically move into the damaged area, and then they anchor themselves there. So this matters because cells cannot fix what they cannot reach. So wound closure and tissue remodeling depends on getting the right cells to the right location. And then finally, 6, cytoprotection. So BPC-157 protects cells from further damage while that repair is underway. This originates from its stomach biology. So in nature, its entire job is to protect gastric lining from stomach acid. That protective function appears to extend throughout cells or throughout the entire body. So that's 6 overlapping and complementary mechanisms, all supporting the same goal. Get blood to the damage, get cells to the damage, calm the inflammation that's blocking the repairs, and protect what's already there. A tendon and a gut lining heal through overlapping biology. BPC-157 accelerates the shared infrastructure. Now here's where I need you to pay close attention, because everything I just described, every single mechanism, comes from animal studies. In 2025, researchers published a systematic review in the HSS journal. They screened 544 articles on BPC-157 for orthopedic applications. And out of all of those articles, exactly 1 was a human study. The other 35 that made the cut were all animal models. The researchers wrote it plainly. Despite its growing popularity, there is minimal human data available. So that's the core tension of BPC-157. 30 years of research, over 100 preclinical studies, consistently impressive results in rats and mice, and almost nothing in humans. So I need you to hold on to that fact clearly, because promising animal data describes countless compounds that ultimately failed in human trials. The jump from rodent to human is where most drugs die. BPC-157 has not failed that jump. It simply hasn't made it yet. Let me walk you through every published human study on BPC-157. Don't worry, this won't take long. Study 1, published in 2021, was 16 patients with chronic knee pain who received intra-articular knee injections of BPC-157. No control group, no placebo, retrospective design. So 14 of 16 reported significant pain relief lasting 6 months or longer. That's encouraging, but 16 people with no placebo control tells you almost nothing about whether the peptide caused the improvement or whether time, attention, and the injection procedure itself played a role. Study 2, published in 2024, so 12 patients with interstitial cystitis. That is a painful bladder condition, generally very difficult, very complicated to treat. These patients received BPC-157 injected directly into the bladder. I know, ouch. So results were striking, between 80 and 100% symptom resolution, which, believe me, for this condition in my experience is extraordinary. So again, no placebo, no control group, a pilot study, but the magnitude of improvement in a condition that's notoriously difficult to treat got my attention. Study 3, published in 2025. So 2 adults received IV BPC-157 at doses up to 20 milligrams, which is a wildly high dose. No adverse effects observed. This was purely a safety study, not an efficacy study. 2 patients is barely a case report, but it is, the first published data on IV administration in humans. That's it. So fewer than 30 total human studies across all published research. No randomized control trials, no placebo comparisons, and 1 phase 1 safety trial that, enrolled 42 volunteers in 2015, then was canceled without ever publishing the results. No explanation was ever given publicly. So when someone tells you that BPC-157 is well studied, ask them, in what species? If you're looking for a physician who manages peptide therapy with this level of clinical honesty, who prescribes when appropriate and says no when the risk does not justify it, the link to book a free consult is in the description. Now for the part that most peptide content either ignores or dismisses with a hand wave. Angiogenesis. BPC-157 promotes the growth of new blood vessels. That's the primary mechanism behind its healing properties. New blood vessels deliver oxygen and nutrients to damaged tissue, speeding the repair. But tumors also need blood vessels to grow, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. Angiogenesis is one of the hallmarks of cancer progression. If you have a microscopic tumor that your immune system is keeping in check, and you introduce a compound that aggressively promotes new blood vessel formation, there is very much so a theoretical concern that you could feed that tumor a supply line that it didn't have before. I want to be precise here. There is no published data, no published case of BPC-157 causing cancer in a human. There is no clinical trial data showing tumor promotion. This is a mechanistic concern based on the biology of angiogenesis, not a documented adverse event. But theoretical does not mean irrelevant. It means we don't have the data to rule it out. In my practice, I do not prescribe BPC-157 to anyone with an active malignancy. I do not prescribe it to anyone with a personal or strong family history of cancer without a very careful risk-benefit conversation. And I think any prescriber who doesn't at least discuss this concern with their patients is doing them a disservice. If you watch my last video on the FDA reclassification, you know that BPC-157 is moving from Category 2 back to Category 1. That means compounding pharmacies can prepare it again with a physician's prescription. So that's a significant access improvement, but I need to repeat something I said in that video. Category 1 is not FDA approval. It means a pharmacy can compound it. It does not mean the FDA has reviewed the evidence and concluded it's safe and effective. Those are completely different regulatory milestones, and collapsing them into BPC-157 is legal now misleads and oversimplifies people. It misleads them about what we actually know. So given everything I just told you, why do I prescribe it? Because clinical medicine lives in the gap between perfect evidence and patient need. I have patients with chronic tendon issues that failed standard treatment. I have patients with gut issues that haven't responded to all of the conventional options. The animal data is robust and consistent. The limited human data, while small, shows meaningful responses. The safety profile from over 30 years of preclinical research shows no significant adverse events. But when I weigh that against the alternative of telling patients there's nothing else I can offer, the calculus tips towards a carefully monitored trial. Here's what my protocol looks like. So I prescribe 250 to 500 micrograms daily via subcutaneous injection, typically near the site of injury for musculoskeletal issue. Gut applications, I sometimes use oral BPC-157, which has data supporting that gastric stability. So standard course is going to be 4 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer if things are going well. So I do require typically baseline labs before starting, including inflammatory markers and a basic metabolic panel. So I check in at 2 to 4 weeks. I set a clear expectation up front. This is an informed clinical decision with limited human evidence. You are not taking an FDA-approved medication. You are accepting a degree of uncertainty in exchange for a potential benefit. That conversation is the difference between responsible prescribing and hype. The last piece matters as much as the peptide itself, where it comes from. So with the reclassification opening compounding pharmacy access again, I want to be clear about the difference. Compounding pharmacy operates under state and federal oversight. They follow USP 797 sterility standards. Their products go through potency testing, sterility testing, and endotoxin testing. They have a pharmacist overseeing the production and a physician's prescription authorizing the compound. A gray market vendor operates under nothing. That certificate of analysis tests purity, not sterility, not endotoxins, and not whether the vial was filled in a clean room or someone's garage. The molecule might be correct. Everything around it may not be. With compounding pharmacy access returning, the risk-benefit math on gray market peptides just changed permanently, in my opinion. There's no longer a strongly defensible reason to inject yourself with an unregulated product when a better regulated option exists. Here's my bottom line on BPC-157. The evidence is early. 3 human studies, fewer than 30 patients, no randomized trials. But the preclinical data is unusually consistent across dozens of studies and multiple tissue types. The mechanism of action is now well characterized. And the safety signal from over 30 years of research thus far is very clean. If you're considering BPC-157, do it with a physician who understands both the promise and the limitations. Do it with a product from a licensed compounding pharmacy, and do it with your eyes open about where the science actually stands. If you want that kind of physician, that's what I do at Barrick Health. Links in the description. Subscribe if you want peptide and weight loss content from a doctor who tells you what the evidence actually says, not what sells. I'll see you in the next one.